a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'd like to welcome you to FPC Radio Live. That's right, it's January 31st. Last day of January, and we know our Super Bowl matchup. That's right, the Los Angeles Rams will be hosting. How about that, John? 2 years in a row, the host team, host city, hosts the Super Bowl. The Los Angeles Rams hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. That's right. The Bengals upset the Chiefs yesterday. The Rams held off the 49ers in two pretty epic conference championship game collapses by both the 49ers and the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs was quite a bit worse than the 49ers because we've kind of come to expect that from the 49ers when it comes to late leads and championship games. They just sort of blow it. So before we get to that, though, John, let me clear my throat, make sure that I got all the tears out of my eyes. But we did hear late last week or over the weekend that according to Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington, that Tom Brady was planning on retiring, and obviously for many reasons that brings a lot of it makes my mind go in many different directions, thinking about the possibility of this being the end or last we've seen of Tom Brady. However, he has denied or pushed back that he's made a decision. He's apparently called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've been left out of the loop this entire time, apparently, but he did call the Buccaneers and tell them that he has not made a decision yet. And that doesn't mean he's not leaning towards and will eventually retire this offseason. However, part of me feels that he truly has yet to make a decision. And John, this is what I'm going to hang my hat on. If this was just a case of Schefter and Darlington kind of jumping the gun and kind of ruining his announcement, I don't think he goes out of his way to call the Buccaneers and tell them that I haven't made up my mind yet. Because if it was, he would tell them, like, look, I haven't made the announcement yet, but this is my plan, and this is what I'm doing moving forward. You're not going to call the front office and say, hey, I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm still debating. You know what I'm saying? So to me, if you're a Tom Brady fan, if you want to see him play one more season like I do, actually, I want to see him play 10 more seasons, but I'm being realistic, John. If you want to see him play one more season, maybe you hang your hat on the fact that he has truly not made up his mind yet. And this isn't just trying to cover for the fact that he's upset about the fact that he couldn't announce it himself. I hope so. If it is the end, though, I mean, incredible. I mean, this is a day that I've dreaded for much of my adult life, considering I was 14 years old when he was drafted and began playing for the Patriots. So it was quite a long time ago. But yeah, it's something that you would think that a 44-year-old announcing his retirement wouldn't be shocking. And it wouldn't be, I mean, we talk about Barry Sanders all the time, leaving the game at his absolute peak. Tom Brady's still the best quarterback in the league. If he walks away now, he's doing so as the very best and having, in my opinion, a lot left in the tank, which is pretty incredible when you think about his age. And look, I said it yesterday, I tweeted it, I plan on writing something about it, but if this is the end, I think there's no one more well-deserving to be put in the Hall of Fame by missing the 5-year waiting period. I think you put him in next year, 2023, if this is the year. If not, wait till 2024 when he retires after next season.
I think what we can look at, Ian, is, yes, he was spectacular this year. I mean, playing at the highest level. He's going to finish second in MVP balloting. Do you think he should have won it? I think a lot of people think he should win the MVP. Nonetheless, no one questions how great he is and how he continues to be great. And perhaps that's the way he wanted to go out. You know, he won that Super Bowl last year. I think he obviously would love to have repeated this year with Tampa. And if he won it this year, I would have felt that he'd come back to three-peat because that's never happened in the Super Bowl era. So why not do one more thing that no one's ever done? I just think that someone within the inner sanctum of Tom Brady kind of let this slip out to Adam Schefter or Jeff Darlington, who are really pretty well connected. And Darlington is probably the most well connected with the Brady camp as anyone, and somehow it slipped out from someone, whoever that might be. They went with it, and he just wanted to handle it the way he wanted to handle it, which he deserved. Do it in a press conference. I mean, that's kind of more old school. That's kind of like what John Elway did in 1999. Now you do it with an IG post or maybe a video on Twitter or whatever. But let him actually make that announcement. The other great athlete of the century, LeBron James, has moved on from Cleveland to Miami. He controlled the narrative in that, obviously with the decision with Jim Gray. And then when he went back to Cleveland, he controlled the narrative with that, with the post on Sports Illustrated. I think that's the way Brady wanted to handle this. And someone slipped up and kind of let the cat out of the bag.
I would say this, though, to push back on that. The one thing that I don't look, to be honest, I don't think Tom sharing his decisions with or his thought process with a lot of people. I think that circle is very, very small. So the reason I have a little bit of doubt, it's because we know the biggest loose lips member of the Brady clan, Tom Brady Sr., actually came out and reiterated what Tom said and said he's not retiring. He hasn't made up his mind yet. So to me, I do feel like he has not made that decision yet. And I think whatever reason, maybe you're right. Maybe this was a, a friend of a friend type of thing. You know what I mean? Like a person who might have, oh, I think he's going to retire. I think he's going to do this. I think he's going to do that. People were talking about in hindsight his contract. Oh, well, it was never really a 3-year deal. Well, yeah, no, I know. I understand that, his contract structure allows the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to obviously load up this previous season at the sacrifice of this next season. However, again, go back to the Tampa Bay response, Jason like Bruce Arians, all that. If that was the plan all along, then they probably expect him to be retired. At this point, they're not sure of it at all. So to me, I feel like unless this is just a big, game that they're playing right now, and maybe Tampa is just kind of helping Tom out here, I just don't think he's made a decision yet. Now, again, that does not mean he will not eventually retire and hang him up. I mean, he's certainly more than capable of it, more than deserving to finally take a rest. But I just sit here and think, like, man, I can't help but feel like he's just leaving so much good football on the field.
Mhm.
And, based on what we saw, and like, look, you and I, we both, you know, big Joe Burrow fans. I begrudgingly am going to have to give credit to the Rams in a couple weeks if they win. I'm not prepared to do it yet, but I will begrudgingly have to do so. The landscape of the NFL is great. There's a lot of promise, a lot of young guys, but one thing stays true, and we saw it this weekend. We saw it play out with the Chiefs game. We're going to get to that there here in just a minute. Don't think I'm going to miss an opportunity to pile on my man, Mr. Patrick Mahomes. We look at the landscape of the league and how well Brady is set up to succeed, even at his age, because of his ability. And how I feel like, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking like of all the guys to go out, I mean, all the main big quarterbacks, the big QBs that we talk about, they all went out early, far earlier than we expected. Only one of them actually went out with his head being able to be held high because,
Mhm.
well, ironically, the one who went out first, or actually, I guess technically the Packers were whatever, who went out last week was able to scratch and claw his way back into a dogfight with what we now know as the NFC champion Rams. So um, if he walks away, I feel like he's just leaving so much great football on the table, and it's a shame because as much as you would think, oh yeah, you've had 22 years of it, I want more. John. I want more. You know what? I want more. Give me one more. Give me one more farewell for us. Give us fan service. I know that's not his thing. That's not what he's looking for. But gosh darn it, man, give me one more year. That's what I want. One more year.
Perhaps he just wants to go out on top and being right there as the best quarterback in football. Would you feel more comfortable if he came back next year? And look, he's never going to suck. That's not possible. The man is too good. But at some point, maybe if play starts to go down, and instead of being the best quarterback in football, he has kind of middling statistics and the team barely squeezes into the playoffs or go 9-8. Maybe he doesn't want that. I know he
That's
always
true.
said, I want
That's
to
true.
play until I suck. I mean, there's different degrees of that, right? Like maybe he's not an MVP candidate next year, but maybe he's still Tom Brady and wins 9 or 10 games and wins a division and whatnot, but he's not quite at that level. Maybe the last thing of him is coming back from 27-3 down, and we all know that if they had stopped the Rams, you just get the feeling that Tampa would have won in overtime, right? Like somehow.
Speaking, hey, John, I'm glad you brought that up, by the way. I'm glad you brought that up because as I expected, the energy, the excitement, the discussion about overtime must have obviously gone the opposite direction after this last week because I believe last week and all we heard about was teams need 2 possessions. We need 2 possessions. Oh my God, they win the coin toss. Of course they're going to win. I mean, the Chiefs even tweeted it from their account. We won the coin toss. Well, guess what? You lost the game because the other team played defense, and that's really and you just Niagara Falls me there, John, because I wasn't planning on jumping into this game right away. But you said overtime, and I was like, well, slowly I turn right into this discussion because it's so obvious that like last week people were up in arms about the perceived unfairness. It's like, oh my God, how do you expect to win a game when Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get the ball first? Well, he could throw 2 terrible passes, one of which should have been a pick six, the second of which was deflected, but he's not getting credit for throwing another bad pass. Look, I mean that's overtime. This is the great thing about overtime. The Bengals made a play and gave themselves an opportunity to win that game. And you know what they did? They cashed in on that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs could have stopped them. They could have got another chance, but they didn't.
Sure.
And the Bengals, to their credit, kicked their way into the Super Bowl. And, hats off to them because that was an impressive performance. And yet another example as to why the overtime rules just don't need changing. They're fine. What needs changing, John, is Patrick Mahomes' performance. I mean, I was so close, John. I'm sitting there yesterday reevaluating my life. Tom Brady's not going to be here next year, so I'm going to have to actually pick another quarterback who I believe is the best in the league.
I think I know who that's going to be, by the way.
Well, look, I'm not quick to jump. I think it's going to be a tough decision to make because if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, I think it would have been a little bit clearer, a couple options. But let's be honest. I mean, we talked about Aaron Rodgers last week and how much that loss hurt him, coupled with his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes, it's the same exact thing. I mean, his second half was so bad that the only other games you can compare it to are his Super Bowl 55 performance and some of the other poor performances he's had, specifically in one half or the other in certain games, which all we hear about going into it is like, 9-0, touchdown to interception ratio at home. Like he just doesn't lose. Well, all of a sudden they're 2-2 at Arrowhead. Okay, he's had multiple full halves of football where he's been at best ineffective, at worst looks like a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Because what I saw yesterday in that second half, oh boy, that was bad. I mean, that was bad.
Yeah. I mean, as bad as Rodgers was against San Francisco, he wasn't as bad as Mahomes was in the second half yesterday. Mahomes was brilliant in the first half. Again, 21 points. And for some unforeseen reason, they just didn't kick the field goal to go up 24-10 or just have Mahomes throw the ball into the end zone.
Well,
with no timeout.
Started.
And then that was the biggest play because if they get in the end zone there, 28-10, they get the ball to start the third quarter. It's probably an avalanche at that point. I know younger brother Joe Burrow never gives up, but I mean that'd be a lot to come back from. But okay, in that situation, 5 seconds left, he has no timeouts left. He has to know that, or at least his coach has to echo that to him. And then he has that swing pass to Tyreek Hill, who's phenomenal, but give Eli Apple and the rest of that defense for making the play. And now it's 21-10 going into the half, and you feel all the momentum going with Cincinnati. Kind of like how the Packers had a 7-0 lead at the half against San Francisco, but then after the blocked field goal, which should have put them up 10-0, it feels like all the momentum goes on the team that made that defense stop. So Mahomes there has to be a quick play where he should just be a fade to Travis Kelce. I mean, he's a nightmare matchup. He's 6'6". Just do that, and if it doesn't work, kick the dang field goal. Now I'm starting to talk like you. Kick the darn field goal, and you're up 24-10. Again, Andy Reid, I love him. I mean, brilliant mind. Sometimes gets a little too creative, and Mahomes, I think, just fogged out in that moment because after the play, he's calling for a timeout, which he didn't have. There's no timeouts left. I mean, he was Chris Webber in that moment. So, no, that was, and then from that point on, he just was constantly chasing that play. What do we always say about the quarterback?
You have to have a short memory.
You got to be a cornerback, right? You got to be like a cornerback or a hockey goalie. Hey, you know what? I gave up a soft goal. I'm not giving up any more goals. That's the mentality. You know that. You're a goalie.
Yeah.
But
I said that 11 times in one game once.
That's all right. But you have to have that mentality. Now, Brady is the best I've ever seen at that. The man threw a pick six in a Super Bowl, was down 28-3 and came back and won the game. Rodgers and Mahomes, great quarterbacks, no question. I don't know if they have that ability. And sometimes Jimmy Garoppolo is almost a flip of that. Like he has no conscience or no memory because he continues to do stupid things. Well, God bless him. Younger brother Joe Burrow.
It's almost a case of being a little bit too naive.
He's almost like, what the hell? I'm Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, you know what, Ian? If we look like that guy, we'd probably be ultra confident too. The man is handsome. But younger brother Joe Burrow, who now I started the hashtag Baby Brady, has a lot of the same qualities Brady has. I'm not comparing him to him, but a lot of those same. I mean, he threw a pick yesterday, right? What did he do? We roll over the sidelines, like, all right, no big deal. Our defense will come up with the play, and I'll get the ball back, and I'll make all the plays happen. He ran for first downs. Now, he's a better athlete than people think because he had the knee injury a year ago. The man was all state.
But he's not even necessarily a running quarterback. And this is the other best thing about the capability. Yeah, and that's another great thing that came out of this weekend was like after the first, it was all about these running quarterbacks. Well, guess what? I consider Joe more of a pocket passer, and that's why I like the way he plays, and that's why I think he has more of that ability. Like, I mean, we saw go back to the first half of the Kansas City game, and this is what gets people so, kind of upside down when it comes to evaluating quarterback play. There was one play in particular where Mahomes got the ball, snapped it, ran to his left, and did a quick little pivot because there's a defender there. Runner, I think it was the touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill, where he scrambled, and like super cool on TV and everything like that. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's not great quarterback play. That's just using athleticism to your advantage, which is fine. I mean, and certainly there's cases to be made that's the best play in a certain moment. But to me, it looks like, well, you're just bailing out again. This is the same issues that we had before. It's like, okay, you can run around and create an advantage, but that relies on essentially what you're doing when you scramble is you need to rely on the other team to break down. And to rely on other teams to make mistakes is not a great way to sustain success. You look at what the Patriots and in the last couple of years the Buccaneers have done with Brady is, Brady attacks your weaknesses. He doesn't rely on you to make a mistake. He relies on his ability to beat your best plays and your best situations, and then of course capitalize on your weaknesses. That's why he's great, because he'll sit back in the pocket, he'll decipher, and he's not sitting there running around trying to hope and pray that Tyreek Hill gets open, and then you can huck it down the field. And that's a problem that we're seeing, and it's going to have to change. And the problem is, and I said this on our FPC NFL Sunday show yesterday, I thought this was the very best chance the Chiefs were going to have moving forward to win a second Super Bowl in this run. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. I mean, you look at the landscape of the NFL and the AFC specifically, and not to take anything away from what they've achieved, but they've taken great advantage of a lull in the AFC. Let's be real here. Tom Brady leaves, all of a sudden, this conference was pretty soft. I mean, the Titans, quote unquote, were the top team for the last couple of years in this conference. And does anyone think, after what we've seen from that team, that they're that good? No. I mean, last year, what was it? The Browns, divisional round. The Bills were a little bit early, and that's the thing. These teams that they're facing and competing with in the AFC East weren't quite ready yet. Well, guess what? They're ready now. The Bills, they're ready. I know they lost, but they're ready. The Bengals are clearly ready. Other teams in this conference, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, they're progressing. They're a better team. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at it like, all these teams have kind of caught up to the Chiefs. I mean, do
Mhm.
I know who the best quarterback is in the AFC? I have no idea. No clue.
No, there's probably, I would say, 4, maybe 5 young guys that are in that discussion, right?
Mhm.
Mahomes certainly is in the discussion. Joe Burrow is certainly there. Justin Herbert, who's not made the playoffs, but I think we both agree has all the talent necessary to be a top tier quarterback. I don't think anybody doubts that. Certainly Josh Allen's there. Lamar, I'll put in there because he has won an MVP and he makes plays, but I think he's going to have to evolve more as a quarterback. Those are the guys. And here's the interesting thing, Ian. And sometimes you have to pause for a second and then you look back and go, why did I miss this? The Chiefs were 12-5 this year. You realize they were only 7-5 against the AFC. They went 5-0,
Yeah.
5-0 against the NFC. The NFC East, maybe the worst division we've ever seen, and they beat a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers. Those were their 5 wins against the NFC. 7-5 within the conference. And again, how many times have we said it? The Chargers should have beat them that second game if they don't screw up the 2-point conversions and 4th down drives and all these types of things. The Chargers may have taken control of that division. So yeah, maybe in retrospect, they've taken advantage of the last 3 years. Brady getting knocked out in the wild card round back in 2019, and then being in the NFC the last 2 years. Yeah, because the first half just looked like, oh my Lord, they're going to put up 42. I thought they were just going to score 42 yesterday and 42 in the Super Bowl. That was going to be their score every game because it looked that way. And then that last play of the first half, he just never recovered from that.
Yeah.
And a quarterback has to recover from his mistakes.
And look, this isn't first time either. We're not talking about wow that we've never seen. No, this is starting, and I said it last year after the Super Bowl. They're starting to become a pattern, and we wonder. We've talked about Aaron Rodgers before, and we wonder how does a guy that's so great just shrink in some of the biggest moments. And look, it just goes to show how winning in this league, it's not as easy as people think. I saw people tweeting yesterday during the first quarter, like, the over under for Patrick Mahomes going to the Super Bowl is 10. And I'm like, Jesus effing Christ. Like, do people just not appreciate how hard it is to win in this league? Just think about just all the little things that go on in each and every game, and everything that you have to do. Everything they did this season came down to 2 quarters of football, and they dropped the ball literally and figuratively. And again, a lot of that had to do with their quarterback play. They didn't. There were mistakes that they made. There were plays they could have made on defense. Sure, absolutely, but we talk every single day about how important the quarterback position is, and you can't sit there and say that his play did not lead to a lot of those issues, because all you really have to do with a 21-3 lead, you just got to make a couple plays. And I saw people pointing, and I knew exactly when they started talking about the 18-point deficit going into half. I was like, oh, they're going to bring up Indianapolis and New England in 2006.
Right.
And that, look, I've said for a very long time that is one of the second or third worst losses, behind Super Bowl 42, and including some other Super Bowls in the Patriots run, because, you win that game, you go on to play the Bears in the Super Bowl, and you're talking about 4 in 6 years. But again, that's 15 years ago. We're not talking about that. But the point is, in that game, at the very least, that game didn't end 24-21. I think that was like 34-31 towards the end. So
30, I think 35-31. Yeah. And although for some reason Jim Nantz said that game went to overtime, which it clearly didn't.
No, it didn't. Yeah, he said that, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I was listening to some guys on Fox Radio the other night trying to tell me that Joe Montana had 5 Super Bowl wins, which we know it's only 4. The whole thing about Mahomes going to 10 Super Bowls, the interesting thing is Brady has 10, right? 10 appearances in the Super Bowl. The quarterback with the next most is
5.
John Elway with 5. Right. So it's like, if Mahomes gets to that level, that's pretty good. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to look back and say this guy was not very good. It's just, again, Brady has set the bar so high that it's foolish for these other guys to even be compared to him, or anybody think that they're going to accomplish what he did. It's just not fair to them.
Silly thing,
Brady.
The silly thing is about it, and now that we have the finality of Mahomes and Brady's seasons this year, since they've both been in the league, Brady's been better. He's accomplished
Yep.
more. He's won more. I think outside of 50 touchdowns in 2018, he's outproduced Patrick Mahomes, pretty consistently. So we're talking about, again, go back to some of the commentary about him, like, oh, the baby goat, or he's on pace to do this. Well, in his perceived prime, in a young age at 26, he is not as good as a 40. How do you expect him to play at that high level? And that's the thing. What people don't understand, this is like, trying to I don't know how to put it in perspective any better than what Patrick Mahomes has to do, especially now. I mean, let alone now that he's only won one Super Bowl in his first 4 seasons. As crazy as that sounds, he's so far off pace from what Brady's done already. Like that's what's ridiculous about all this. So like when you sit there and say, "Oh, well, of course he's going to do this." Well, I don't know about that, because not only does he have to play at the same level that he's played at for the last few years, he has to do that for like another 14 or 15 years with no drop off to even
Right.
remotely come close to touching not only Brady's accomplishments, but his statistical prowess. Like everyone sits there and thinks that Patrick Mahomes is just going to sleepwalk his way to these passing titles. Well, no. I mean, you have to play a long time, and like the addition of a 17th game isn't going to necessarily change that because of how much Brady has on his resume. But like you would have to, again, you would have to sustain a high level of success, which doesn't happen often. We see it every so often with quarterbacks. I mean, look, even Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a complete run of a he had a couple of years where they were under 500. Now again, injuries played a role in that. Transitions on the team played a role in that. But who's to say that's not going to happen in Kansas City?
Sure.
All that
What if
has to,
Andy Reid
yeah,
in 3 years says, you know what, I've done enough here, I've retired,
yeah.
I'm worried about my health, I'm heavy, my son is driving me crazy, whatever, and decides that that's enough. Now, yeah, we would hope Eric Bieniemy becomes the coach, but we don't know how that's going to work out. And Travis Kelce, I believe, is 33.
He's
Tyreek
the
Hill is
same age as Gronk. He's actually older than Gronkowski, which no
older
one
than Gronk. I
understands.
know. I think Gronk came right out of high school or something, it feels like. But yeah, so I mean, you got to keep that team together. And look, man, because at halftime I'm like, okay, he's going to win today. He's going to win the Super Bowl, and if he does that, he's going to have 10 playoff wins in his first 4 years. Aaron Rodgers has 11 in his entire career. I'm going, this kid's really on his way to being, right up there with anyone. And again, even if he won the Super Bowl this year, he'd still trail Brady by 5. But you got to get to 2, then to 3 before you get to 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's just that was one of the most incredible meltdowns I've ever seen. Like, I don't know who was worse yesterday, Mahomes in the second half or Garoppolo in the fourth quarter. Like, I don't know.
I'd say Mahomes, because I think the expectations are so much higher. Yeah.
Right.
And
Mahomes.
And look, I mean, I think we all know what Jimmy G is. I think he's a good quarterback that can elevate his game more so in big moments than anything. But that's not to say he's a great. I mean, he's just, again, he's limited in what he can do. So
right.
it was definitely on Mahomes, because look, I mean, you have a team that, at least the Rams have been there and they've been knocking on the door for the last several years. The Bengals, I mean, Jesus, they hadn't won a playoff game in 31 years, and you're going to go out and lay an egg like that. And that, again, that goes back to, you go back to last year's divisional round. In hindsight, you got a Cleveland Browns team. Whoop-de-doo. Again, another team that has absolutely zero playoff success in the last 3 decades. You were fortunate enough to get into that game. And like I said, you got to face Josh Allen and the Bills last year in the AFC Championship game. 1 year too early for the Bills. They're still growing. We saw them grow quite a bit this year, and I think they're going to be even better next year. So, has it been fortunate? Yeah. Have the Patriots been benefited from some easy divisional round matchups? Absolutely. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the Chiefs have really maximized their opportunities against a softer conference. Except this time, they really dropped the ball, because you think about next year. Patrick Mahomes isn't on his rookie contract anymore. And all these people that are just assuming that he's just, again, going to waltz into 10 straight Super Bowls and just shatter every record, I think they're getting hit with the harsh reality and the things that certainly Patriots fans have said for a while, and certainly Packers fans know all too well. Winning's not easy. It's just not.
No.
And what Brady and the Patriots and what they've done over the last 20 years is not the norm. So I said it yesterday. People just need to step away from comparing the two. That's off the table. No
Mhm.
one right now is at any sort of reasonable pace to match what Tom Brady has done. Speak to me in 15 years when a quarterback is knocking on the door, and then we can have the discussion. Right now, it's not appropriate because what happens is now all of a sudden we have this absolutely upside down skew of how we should evaluate quarterbacks. And I said it yesterday on our FBC NFL Sunday show. Like we're talking about Aaron Rodgers as if he's a failure. Why?
Right. Oh, great point.
Why?
Great point. Hell
Exactly.
of a quarterback, right? I mean, he's not far behind Peyton Manning, right?
Yeah.
Ian, I mean, Manning was 14-13 in his career in the postseason. They needed those last 3 wins to get over 500, 5 MVPs. At least he
Joe
went to
Montana
4
was
Super Bowls.
16-7. That's not like that's obviously better, but it's not like out of this world, out of reach. So
Brady has 35.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
he's got as many postseason wins as the Dallas Cowboys in their entire franchise's history, and that's a team that won 5 Super Bowls. You know, I mean, they're kind of a punchline now because Mike McCarthy and they seem to always screw things up. Cowboys have a great history. He won 5 Super Bowls. They have the same amount of playoff wins as Tom Brady.
Which is absurd. So again, when you're sitting there comparing Rodgers relative to Brady, yeah, absolutely, it's a failure. You want to sit there and say you're the next Tom. Well, guess what? You're not even close. And I hope. And maybe this is a little bit of a silver lining if he does retire and walk away. And trust me, I'm very dull silver. Let's just put it that way.
You're going to church today for the first time in 20 years.
I go to church every Sunday, John. All right, you see the jersey hanging up behind me. All right, that's my deity there. But no, like, look, I mean, if he does walk away, maybe people snap out of their funk and realize that it was foolish to even compare anyone to him, let alone while he was beating and playing against them. I mean, it's just silly to suggest. So maybe we get back to actually appreciating quarterback play for what it is. Like we can sit there and go back to being like, okay, this is going to be great. The AFC, they have a bunch of young quarterbacks. Mahomes is great. He's already won a Super Bowl and an MVP. Justin Herbert's on the way. Josh Allen's here. Joe Burrow's heading to a Super Bowl. He could be a Super Bowl champion in a matter of 14 days. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is great. The AFC is in great shape because we have a lot of great quarterbacks. And it would be fine because that'd be true. But the moment you start uttering the name Tom Brady and like, oh, Joe Burrow goes out and win a Super Bowl and now he's the next Tom Brady. Well, no. Let's see, just like with Mahomes, just like with Rodgers, just like with Russell Wilson, let's see their careers play out a little bit before we start jumping the gun. Because then all of a sudden, when Joe Burrow doesn't win 3 Super Bowls in a row, all of a sudden he sucks. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe we'll get back to some sort of normalcy when it comes to evaluating quarterback play. But unfortunately, Tom Brady has ruined it for everyone. Okay, so anyways, obviously we have 13 days until the Super Bowl. Cincinnati, Los Angeles. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time over the next couple of weeks, breaking it down, giving our thoughts and opinions, and kind of, I haven't made up my mind who I'm going to pick yet. I think I'm rooting for the Bengals. I just don't know if I'm going to pick them yet. So we're going to really get into it over the next couple of weeks. Maybe at some point I might utter some praise for Sean McVay. I don't know yet. You're just going to have to tune in to find out. So,
what about Sean McVay's dad? Did you see him?
Tim McVay? Timothy McVay?
Oh, man,
Are you?
how macho? Timothy McVay?
Yeah. Like,
how macho is that guy?
What,
Holy crap!
What was that? Like, first of all, I agree with you. Second of all, I'm actually asking you because I saw someone tweet this because they were, the classic Seinfeld, bit with Joel Rifkin and Elaine's boyfriend, the serial killer. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, wait, did someone tweeted his name? Was his name really Timothy or Tim or something?
Tim McVay, yeah.
Jesus, oh my God, like that, like
I know.
I mean, I understand. Obviously, like he might be older than the bad Timothy McVay. So there's kind of just a coincidence. It's kind of like the Michael Bolton thing from Office Space.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
But still,
I
that's tough. So I saw a lot of Remy
played
McVay.
Remy McVay. Yeah,
Remy,
yeah.
Remy Rifkin.
He played defensive back in Indiana in 1975, 76, and 77. So that would make him around 65, 66 years old. Man, that guy's in tip-top shape. I mean, they got some good genes in that family because his dad, with John McVay, was an executive with the Giants and the 49ers. So, football in the family's blood. But I mean, that guy could pass as Sean McVay's older brother, not his dad. Holy cow.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'll save my praise for McVay and the Rams for when they or if they win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to do it a moment sooner. Not a moment sooner.
Okay.
So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be back to kick off February numero uno. That's right. February 1st tomorrow. New month. Just trucking through 2022, getting closer and closer to the Super Bowl. So in the meantime, give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. Of course, follow us on our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff over there over the offseason and, of course, heading into the Super Bowl. So head over to YouTube, search Full Press Coverage, and, of course, just search it wherever you are on Twitter because you'll find all of our accounts because, hey, we like followers. So have a great day, folks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.